All right, let's see if I can keep this voicemail short. But I remember something that happened way back when I was young. And I'm going to read right off the science page. It says the investigator dressed in sweater and tie and holding a small metal box stands in the bull ring. He taunts a bull with a gesture of his hand. Suddenly, the bull faces him and charges. Taking a couple of steps back, the investigator presses a button on the box to send a radio signal, and the bull halts in mid stride. It turns away. The animal's natural aggression has evaporated. This risky behavior control demonstration, conducted in Spain in 1963, was a signature experiment of José Manuel Rodríguez Delgado, a physiologist and scientific showman who explored the varied responses of the brain to electrical stimulation. Focus on the word electrical stimulation. During the middle decades of the 20th century, Delgado grew notorious for using electricity to elicit rage, anxiety, pleasure, drowsiness, and involuntary movements in his animal and human subjects. Critics complained that he was paving the way for mind control. Delgado countered that changing the functioning of brains through electrical stimulation was not necessarily a bad thing, and it goes on, a lot of good information there. But I want you to think about that for a second and how I came to this kind of idea. It might be way out there, I might be totally wrong, but I'm going to throw it out there because a lot of you guys are thinkers and a lot smarter than I am. But I was sitting in a house and I saw a phone charger, and I'd never seen one before. It's where I built the greenhouse. And I said, "What is that?" And they said, "Phone charger. You just lay your phone on it and it charges your phone." I'm like, "You got to be kidding me! You don't have to plug in your phone." No, you just lay it on it and it charges it. I'm like, so therefore it's sending out whatever waves necessary, whatever electrical currents necessary to charge a 5G phone battery without even plugging it in. I sent a picture of that earlier. Then I started thinking 5G is now required in Korea. Just like everything, it was voluntary at first, but if you want to go into any restaurant or pharmacy or doctor's office or any post office or public place of business, you are required to carry a 5G cell phone because it has the QRC tracking app on it that every single cell phone in Korea has. Now, think about that. It went from voluntary to required. Now, I don't own one, so I can't go in those places. And by the way, to leave Korea, to go to almost any nation in the world, you have to have a 5G phone on your person with your personal phone number. And you think about how that came about. Everything is you do it voluntarily, and then they make it forced, like Social Security, driver's license, hunting license, car insurance, health insurance. You get my point. So I was thinking about that, and something came to my mind that happened in 1990, probably before some of you guys were born. And we went to a leadership school, an investment advisor leadership school in Sedona, Arizona. And I was sitting on the front row next to one of my good buddies. He was a professional racquetball champion, built like a rock. And one of the guys that came up to speak was going to speak about health and nutrition and how important it was to maintain a healthy lifestyle, especially in the business that we were in. So I'm sitting on the front row next to this guy, and he calls a guy from the audience. This is a scrawny little dude up in the front, giving a speech. He was with his wife, and his wife first demonstrated on him. So he held a candy bar, I think it was a Snickers, about 3 inches in front of his belly with his left arm. First, he held out his arms diagonally, and he asked his wife to pull down his right arm. She couldn't do it. So then with his left hand, he put the candy bar in front of his belly button. He had a shirt on, but about, I'd say, 2 or 3 inches in front of his belly button, held it there. Then she walked up to him with his right hand, and with one hand, he had lost all the energy in his arm, and she just pushed it straight down to his side. And we're like, yeah, okay, right. And so then he asked for a volunteer from the crowd. Well, my buddy said, "Hey, watch this." He jumped up. His name is Mike, and he said, "Hey, and this guy's solid." He says, "This ain't gonna work with me." He walked up on stage, and so then the guy he produced a bag of Sweet and Low. Now this is back in the day when Sweet and Low saccharin, that they're talking about how bad it was and everything. And so he had Mike, my friend, hold the bag of saccharin in his. At first, he tried to pull down his arm. He couldn't even. He almost hung on his arm. He couldn't pull it down to his side. I mean, the guy was stout. So then he got his left hand, and my friend Mike, smiling up there like this isn't going to work on me. He puts the saccharin in his left hand, holds it about 3 inches from his belly button in front of his shirt. And so The guy talks for about 20 or 30 seconds, I guess, so he would lose energy as he has his right arm extended diagonally to his body, and or vertically, and the guy goes over there with one hand, pushes my friend's hands down, and my friend's, you can see he's like trying not to let his hand go down, and he came and sat down and said, "That's the darndest thing I've ever seen. I don't know how he did that." So the guy went on to explain is that we have an electromagnetic field around our bodies, as you guys know, the aura, and he went into all that discussion about how that whatever we do, whatever we consume, affects our aura. Just like words, just like Alt Skull has said, words, everything affects our aura. If you say words that affects your aura, then you lose your power, you lose your strength, you lose your the ability to maintain functions such as thinking. And it stuck with me. And of course, he made a big deal about corn syrups and all this back in 1990. Since then, I've never touched another soda pop. That left a huge impact. And I started thinking about all this shedding stuff that they're talking about. All this, we see pictures everywhere. Is it real or is it not real? And so I started reading as much as I can about our aura and our electromagnetic field. And we've been talking with you guys about pH levels and drinking organic apple cider vinegar and baking soda and water, which actually raises your pH level. And if you study cancer or any other sicknesses, the number one cause of cancer and other things is stress and fear, which lowers your pH level, which causes your body to be acidic. And an acidic body and sugar is what cancer cells and most of the bad things in our body thrive on. So if you can maintain a high pH factor, and I never really studied it, why this was. Well, I started studying it, and all these scientific papers, so I'm going to try to keep this short, but we have an isoelectric point in our body that's measured in pKa. And this is what happens at the amino acid level. And you guys are a lot smarter than me. You can probably add on to this, but you know, molecules are made up of atoms, as you know. And then atoms are arranged in amino acid building blocks, and these link up to form proteins and peptides. All right. Now, of course, as you know, the atoms contain elements like hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur. I can't remember what else. These things are all negatively and positively charged. Now, get this: the higher your pH level factor is, the stronger these amino acids are in rejecting anything attaching themselves to it, thus causing any type of molecular biochemical damages in your body. So proteins are charged at various pH levels, and they affect the complete biochemistry of the body, your whole aura, your whole functioning. If you change the pH level, you change the charge of the amino acids. That lowers your pH, and it will allow proteins to attract to different kinds of resins in your body and create more protons, and thus you're more susceptible to get whatever is there that will contaminate your body and cause any type of illness, cancer, whatever. I found this very, very interesting. And so I started thinking about this. The vaccine has nothing to do with the virus. They have not isolated any virus. And as you know, the germ theory, this is all bogus. But they're not doing that. They haven't even isolated it. So they're not putting in some kind of, you know, like the old vaccines, a small little bit of vaccine, by the way, it comes from the word cow. In Spanish, cow is vaca, vaccine. They're not injecting you with some kind of debilitated virus because they don't even have it isolated. What they're injecting you with in the mRNA vaccine is actually spike proteins. Now think about this, proteins. Now, and if you think about this, I started reading about how how proteins can spread from one individual to another. I didn't think that was possible, and I started reading about it. It is. These proteins can be spread from one individual to another, and obviously, depending on how strong your aura is, how strong your electromagnetic field around you, if you disabilitate that by intake of the wrong products into your body, you're going to have a very weak protection or shield around you to protect you from those proteins. And if you look at foods, for example, I started reading about cross-contamination in foods that cause allergens, and you see that a lot. Like, you know, they have to warn you if a plant has used peanuts or whatever, and it's the proteins in those peanuts, and they're positively and negatively charged atoms that create these allergens, that create the body to react in a certain way on the molecular level. And so it all has to do with the electromagnetic field. Another example, and anti-bugmen probably add a lot to this, is GMO seeds. They're planted in one field and they'll spread to the other field because of pollen drift. And if you start studying pollen, the same thing. The positive and negative charged molecules in those are attracted to whatever they're trying to pollinate. And so if you have pollen drift, you're going to have a huge challenge. As a matter of fact, you could go to court because then they could claim that they patented that field that was not non-GMO. And I think there's actually some lawsuits about that. So I started putting this all together and thinking about it and going, what does this all mean? I mean, shedding is what they call it. I don't believe it's shedding. I think it's bigger than that. So I started putting kind of my thoughts. I could be totally off base here. But the Morgellons act as little antennas, okay? Those graphenes, and they're called xenobots. I looked that up. These nanobots, these xenobots, these graphenes are actually antennae. They come into your body and they're performing a structure sort of like that 1963 experiment by the Spanish doctor who was able to control the bull, but he had to implant some type of antenna to send the signals electronically to control all the different emotions of this bull. Well, they don't have to implant that anymore. They can implant that through the air, through water you drink, through food. Then you have to carry a 5G, which totally breaks down the resistance in your aura. Cell phones, you have it on you all the time. You have it everywhere. The foods we consume lower our pH factor that contain the charges in our own cells. The beverages we drink changes all those positive and negative charges within our proteins and amino acids. Our total atomic structure, or our aura, if you will, or the electromagnetic field that surrounds us, and it makes us susceptible to the people who have altered their DNA through RNA spike proteins. So they have all these RNA spike proteins already in their body, able to spit these out, cross-pollination, if you will, or pollen drift, if you will, or cross-contact, cross-contamination, like in food products, if you will. And that's what I think is absolutely going on. I think that it absolutely is possible, because if they can break down our electromagnetic field through all these little things that they're doing. These guys have been doing this for years and years and years, studying how to do it and control the whole humanity and control the whole population through this changing of the magnetic fields, changing of the structure of our biochemistry. And I kind of coined the term. It's the Lots and the Noahs. Noah was perfect in his generation. Lot was in a city that wanted strange flesh. So the Lots are out there carrying around this altered protein. Nothing about a virus spreading. It's an altered protein, an altered spike protein in their DNA that can affect you if you're in their presence, if your aura has been, if you got a 5G phone, your pH factor is low. But I think there's one more step in this. When talking about Jack Parson and Howard Hughes and all these guys, what's his name, Hubbard, all these guys knew there was a demonic side to this. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. To get these rockets fly, these guys had to do satanic seances. I mean, you take a look at MK Ultra or Operation Paperclip, when they brought over all the scientists, because the Germans knew how to use electromagnetic fields in a huge way, possibly even creating electromagnetic flying vehicles, cylinder-type vehicles, which I've seen pictures of. You look at CERN, who's doing exactly the same thing on a very, very direct way, and they're very open about it, changing the atomic structure and the positive and negative charges, and they're the ones that created the World Wide Web. You see, they're creating something unnatural. They're creating the Lots to control the body and the mind. Now, what do? Well, I think, of course, there's two aspects. The physiology of it, the physical aspect of it, where we control our body as the temple of the Holy Spirit. We take better care of what we eat and drink, our electromagnetic field, to keep that strong, keep our pH factors up, take the iodines, turpentines, the ivermectins, excuse me. But at the same time, we need to have that spiritual side of us. We can't open the gateways. We can't allow the doorways to be opened. We cannot do that, because we do that and we're susceptible. Now, a born-again person can't be demon-possessed, but he can definitely be influenced. He can definitely be used. And I think this is what's happening. This whole shedding thing, I think it's a lot deeper than that. I think this has something to do with the electromagnetic fields, breaking down those barriers and allowing those spike proteins and those proteins that they're getting into the Lots in the world, the sodomites in the world, to try to affect the generation, the genes of the Noahs that are going to absolutely refuse this. So just a few thoughts on that.